A group of MK Party MPs are calling for the removal of Chief Whip Colleen Makhubele. The MPs have written to party president Jacob Zuma saying her leadership is autocratic and that she's made key decisions without consulting the rest of the caucus. They also accuse her of supporting Israel, which they say goes against the party's values. This comes after a leaked letter allegedly written by MK Party MP John that reveals deep divisions in the party's parliamentary caucus. In the letter, Shope allegedly raises concerns about the conduct of some MPs, namely Duduzile Zuma Sambudla and Ntlamulo Ndlela. To look a bit into this story, I'm now joined by Unisa Professor of Politics, Dirk Kotzé. Prof, a very good afternoon to you. Thanks very much for your time. Of course, I mean, we've been trying to get sink our teeth into this a supposed letter that the party's deputy president, Dr. John Shope, wrote to party president Jacob Zuma, and in the middle of that, we then came across this other letter, these MPs complaining about the autocratic style of recently appointed party chief whip Colleen Makhubele. I don't know whether you are able to make sense of it all for us.
Good afternoon. Yes, I think this is very difficult. It follows sort of the pattern that's starting to develop, about a high level of turnover of key persons in the positions, different positions in the party. I think what this says is that the situation of the MK Party in Parliament in general is not in a very good position. I think that was also one of the reasons why ultimately they said Floyd Shivambu, before of the latest developments, that Floyd Shivambu should go back to Parliament. They are not a very effective opposition. They are not very organized and united and being able to present their views in a very clear way in Parliament. I think this is generally part of the problem of the MK Party, is that in an organizational sense, also outside Parliament, they are struggling to really lay a sound foundation for their party structures and their party organizations. In the case of Colleen Makhubele, I think what is possibly part of the problems is that she's seen as a relative newcomer in the party. Because last year with the election, she was actually elected as the only member of parliament of SARA, the South African Rainbow Alliance. And then late last year, she moved away from there and joined the MK Party. And I think it looks like the same applied to Floyd Shivambu also, as if persons who have not been part of the original formation of the party are not looked upon as some people who can expect to be in key or senior positions in Parliament. And if they are, then there's resistance against it from within the party. So I think this is following that pattern. She was, as we know, removed with a motion of no confidence in the Johannesburg Metro Council as the speaker. And the accusations or the reasons for that included similar reasons to what we have heard now or seen in this letter also.
But how much of a problem is the fact that I guess like any president, just like we were told, President Cyril Ramaphosa had the prerogative to fire, ministers and deputy ministers. Similar arguments have been made previously about how the president of the MK Party, Jacob Zuma, has the prerogative in terms of how they operate to actually hire and fire whoever. But how much of that is a problem, in the sense that even though those who joined right from the beginning may have, like a case when they say that the Johnny come lately shouldn't be occupying critical positions in the party and dictating to the party how it should run itself. I mean, one, the party is only a year old, and secondly, if they really feel that way, shouldn't they be raising that with their leadership, including the president of the party?
Yes, I think you touch on an interesting and important point, and that is the internal dynamics of the party, starting with its own constitution, which does not provide for elective processes, elective conferences, and so on. But the buck stops with President Zuma on all appointments, and this will be another case in that regard. So I think what it creates is the possibility for members in the party to actually lobby President Zuma in order to make changes without going through internal party processes in order to do that or to raise their concerns. It becomes a sort of a very direct one-way form of communication with President Zuma. And he can, as you say, rightly hire and fire, which is very different from other political parties where it has to go through elective processes or appointing an acting person until a person has been elected. That is not the way in which the MK party functions. And I think that contributes towards this very high turnover of persons in key positions, whether it's the Secretary General or the Treasurer General, and now it might be even now the case with the Chief Whip in Parliament. And I think over the long run, though it appears, or I think in the beginning when they wrote the Constitution, the idea was it will provide for a more effective party, and that's not sort of dependent on elective processes. But now the counter argument of that and the side effect of this is that it creates this sense of instability and a very sort of sense of that people in key positions are not very much sure about the longevity of their positions or their status there. And I think that is what we are starting to see now within the MK party is as a result of it, we have this quite high turnover in a number of positions, which creates, in a sense, a feeling of, I would say, of instability within the party because there's no understanding that they are there for a period until the next conference or when the next process of decision making will take place.
Of course, I mean, you and I can sit here and perhaps create an impression that other parties that have been around for much longer, including one that is 113 years old, don't do, or people within or inside those parties don't get to lobby powerful people, including presidents and chairpersons, and then get to either occupy positions or get to be heard or listened to more than other people. It happens across the board in all political parties.
Yes, that is indeed so. And I don't try to make the MK party a complete exception, except for the case that in most of these other parties, there is at least more of a collective decision-making processes in most instances. Although, again, the top person, whether it's called a president of a party or have another name, is in the end a person with a decisive voice when it comes to these matters. But I think what is unique about the MK party is that there's no processes really of decision making. They have the National High Command that is on paper supposed to assist President Zuma in these processes, but when it appears as if this is to a large extent a decision of President Zuma in the end.
Of course, I mean, they've done well for themselves in the year and a half that they have been around. And perhaps, I don't know what it will take, or you think it will take, Prof, for all of them to realize from their president down that in order to do just as well, or better still, better than they did in the May elections, they will have to get their house in order before it's actually too late and things do fall apart.
Yes, I think this is absolutely essential for all new parties, but now especially the MK party, because they are, for example, in KwaZulu-Natal and in Mpumalanga, are in good positions, in Gauteng to some extent also. But when it comes to local government elections, no, it depends even more on local infrastructure, on local organization that they have in the different wards, that they have processes and people available that can assist them with the election campaign next year. If they don't have the infrastructure as it looks like it is at the moment, then they are going to struggle. It's easier to campaign at the national or provincial level in order, like for example, last year, than at local government level, which is much more about nomination processes at the local level, about campaigning at the local level, understanding the local issues, and then convincing the local voters that they are supposed to be their choice. So I think this is going to be a major test for the MK Party next year's local government election, whether they have managed already to spread beyond the three main provinces where they are, and also even within these provinces to be able to get right down to the ground in terms of being able to mobilize support there.
I was reading through that letter supposedly written by the party's deputy president to the party president, and looking now at this complaint by some MK Party MPs about their recently appointed chief whip, and wondering how much of it may also have to do with the fact that these people who have come to then occupy very senior positions in a party that's only 1.5 years old, how much of it may have to do not so much with the capabilities or the intelligence of some of the people, but the fact that they haven't really been as exposed to party politics the way a Jacob Zuma has.
Yes, I think this is one of the important points that you've now identified, is that the majority of members of MK, members of parliament, and in both houses, the National Assembly as well as the NCOP, don't have parliamentary experience. Some of them might have at local level, like, for example, Colleen Makhubele in the Johannesburg Council for some time, but they don't have experience of parliament. And a chief whip is a key person in order to understand the intricacies of parliament, because that is where the day-to-day activities of a party in relation to all whatever happens in parliament is determined. It is where the whips come together in order to establish what will be the agenda for the different meetings of parliament. And if you don't have that type of experience, you just simply cannot be at the same level as the other parties where there's people with long parliamentary experience. Again, I think that might have been one of the reasons or motivations why they wanted to take Floyd Shivambu back to Parliament, because there's very few people in MK that actually has that experience. And that goes even to the parliamentary leader of MK, Dr. Floppe, who's been, we all know, was a judge, but he does not have that parliamentary experience and understanding of the workings of Parliament. And that, I think, is one of the main explanations why MK is vocal, but is not a very effective opposition. At the same time, the EFF has changed their approach also. So collectively speaking, the opposition in Parliament at this stage is not a very effective one. And I think we can see that, therefore, also the fact that many of the members of the opposition are, there's not a unified direction or focus areas in what they are doing there.
And of course, throw into the mix the former president's maverick streak, where nothing is ever what it seems.
Yes, that is so. And one wonders, exactly what type of purpose it serves now under these conditions, because he's in absolute control of the party, of the MK Party, and why he does allow, or why his choices are of such a nature that it doesn't stabilize the party. Some people suggest it's almost similar to his approach to cabinets when he was president, of regular reshuffling of the cabinet. But it does not really make sense when one looks at his party himself. There's no challenge for his position, despite what was said about Floyd Shivambu. So there was much more need for him to actually consolidate the party than trying to just manipulate or become involved in internal dynamics of the party for his own interest.
Professor Kotzé, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.